Hi everyone, Dr. Tracy here, and I'm going to make a short video about the things that you need to know for this week. As you saw in the announcements, we have come to the home stretch, and there's just a few things left to cover, and they'll be included on the last test. So this week is updating web pages with Ajax, and I've included a picture with the announcement because this describes what Ajax is and how it works. And Ajax isn't a thing, really. It's not a certain language. It's a combination of the use of browsers and servers and a scripting object that'll let them connect. So this is your browser, your computer at home. When your browser loads a web page that includes JavaScript, it creates an XML HTTP request object, and then sends it through the internet to the server that's holding the data or whatever is stored there. It processes the request according to JavaScript and then creates the response as it was designed to do, and then it sends the data back through the browser where return data is processed using JavaScript and/or HTML, and the page content is updated. Okay, this is different than what you were using before with JavaScript, because before, when an event occurred, we just we skipped this and this and this and this and this. An event occurred and we processed the data with JavaScript. That is fine when you are working with local information. But if you need to use something that's stored on a server, such as in a database or something that's been requested, think of things like project lists or prices or user data once you log in, bank account information. It's not something that's going to be stored on your local computer. It's stored on a distant computer. So in order to access it, there are a number of ways of accessing it. But Ajax is one way of being able to talk to a third-tier server where a browser can send a request to another computer to bring back the required information. I mean, that's kind of the gist of what Ajax is, because Ajax is a methodology that allows client web pages to quickly interact and exchange data with the web server. And that's pretty much what happens. So an HTML page, when it's created, the JavaScript will request it, and then the server on the other end is going to send it back in a data interchange format. Often it's XML. The book discusses JSON, which is a JavaScript object. This object, XML HTTP request object, also called an XHR, is just an object that has methods and properties associated with it so that it can send everything as a group and be received on the other end. Now, how it's received on the other end, that's going to be, another class entirely, where we learn how to program on a data server, like with PHP or something. But for now, what we do is by sending an HTTP request, you get things from a web server automatically. And you can see examples of this every time you start to type something into Google and it tries to figure out what you're saying. Those search suggestions are provided using Ajax because it is, through its Google search, automatically creating an XML HTTP request object. And it's going to need that XHR object to return your results anyway. So it makes it on the event of on type, and it starts to look through to slow down what you have to do, and also to find better and easier matches. So the client requests something through Google, it sends this XHR request, and then the server sends it back. And so, like in the example that was shown from Google, starting to type in solar, you don't have to do enter because the event was created upon the time you clicked within that form field for Google, and it'll return the responses. So there are limitations of Ajax, and as I mentioned earlier, it is not the only way that you can pull off data from a source, but it is a way that you can do that. It's not supported by all web browsers, and it also does not provide any kind of layer of encryption or authentication or security. So that has to come from somewhere else as well. So when we need to access content that is separate from the service that is delivering the page where it was created, when we need to have those types of services with the request, we often have to have a unique identifier that addresses how we're able to get access to that server. So in doing that, you open up a proxy script, which is often something on the server written in a language like PHP, which hilariously enough stands for PHP Hypertext Processor. Yes, the P in PHP stands for PHP. It's a very long story. Maybe if I ever offer my PHP class again, I'll explain it. But anyway, when you run Ajax, you don't run Ajax per se. What you do is that you open up a server to be able to accept requests in the form of the of HTTP or HTTPS, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And it means that you can accept requests for data using Hypertext Transfer Protocol or Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. And when a web server has that, it's participating in what's considered to be running Ajax. So when we run Ajax, we use Ajax, which is, again, the combination of JavaScript and HTML and a server language like PHP to work together. But it involves 4 steps. And the first is creating the object, and that's done on your local computer. Then it sends that object to the server. The server processes that object and it returns the data. So that's the gist of, basically that's what's going on within this chapter. Please continue to read it and look at the examples. But if you'll note, there is no projects for this week. Oh, for this, I missed a word. Just a discussion to explain what Ajax is, and I just kind of told you that. So, short week, we're getting to the end, and I just want you to get familiar with what else there is beyond just simply JavaScript and how else you can use it, and seeing that you can attach an API from a different scripting language to talk to JavaScript through an object is really cool, because that's used not just in web pages, that's used in security, in networking, in working with all kinds of stuff that are on servers, like games that are online, and with other types of applications, and just like the book shows, Google and so forth. So that's something to really get into. And I did give a link here to W3 Schools, and this is a good tutorial, better than the one in the textbook. So if you really want to pursue this a little further, I suggest going through the W3 Schools tutorial for Ajax and just try it and just see what some of the stuff it could do. If you look at this tutorial, this quick link that I gave you, oh, the page isn't fitting. Hang on. There, I moved it over just a bit. If you see the HTML in here, now what's interesting about this is that it is creating the on-click load doc, but on the change content button is when this button is going to click, it's going to create a new XML HTTP request. And it's calling that XHTTP was the variable name. And on the ready state, it'll run this function that says, if it's ready, then it's going to change the inner HTML of the response text. So it opens this with a different file, ajaxinfo.txt, which is contained on this server. And so now when you look at the XML HTTP request object, that's just the H2 title right here. But when I click on the change content button right here, on click equals load doc, this function is going to execute. And so you see it comes up and it replaces the whole page with some data that's stored on a server, not stored within this HTML document. And you can see the result of that. All right, well, hopefully that was helpful to you to understand what Ajax is and how it works. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to hear from you. So just shoot me an email. Talk to you soon. Hope you guys are doing well.